When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish.
The podcast whose only fluff piece is my dick.
Yeah. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
We're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And is it like fluffing, like the fluffers in porn?
Yeah, that's the joke I was making.
Excellent. Okay. All right. I like your cum mug.
Yeah. Thank you. Me too. I use this more often than just about any other mug. That should be my Gayest.
Yeah, just on principle. So today we are going to talk about queer cinema. The people have spoken. They voted. Here we are.
God, it's not been going well in the voting polls. The exit polls have not been favoring me. That was your submission, and you're keeping on your winning streak.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the proper amount of gloating. Which, you know,
I mean, when you win, it's up to you to decide the proper amount.
Is that true? I don't want to be an asshole. I mean, I'm dominating your ass, Kyle.
Wow. Well, don't turn me on so early in the morning,
because that's how daddy rolls. Yeah. We're going to talk about queer cinema, but first, feedback and corrections. Man, y'all had some feelings about the word queer. That's for damn sure.
I thought it was really interesting. Thank you for anyone who shares their stories or opinions. Got a lot of feedback. The one that I wanted to read is an email we got, and we'll jump into it. Good day.
Good day.
Hello. I'm enjoying the current episode subject quite a bit, especially as a queer identifying person. Every journey is a bit different, but here's why that adjective works for me. For most of my life, I identified as a gay male. I've gotten older, though, and our language has evolved. There's been a tendency to make things more and more specific. But there's a lot of information and explanation I don't necessarily want to share with casual acquaintances, including my in-life discovery that I'm intersex. This late in life revelation came around the same time I realized I am agender and found out some early life surgeries my family had performed on me were sexual confirmation surgeries. This is a controversial and charged topic even within the more enlightened LGBT plus spectrums, and frankly invites a lot of conversations I don't want to engage in with the random person at a public event. For me, queer works best then for a lot of reasons. It doesn't invite a lot of conversation generally. It covers everything from sexual identity to gender identity to social perspective. I'm 47, and my relationship to queerness goes back to those self-identifying heroes of mine who were politically advocating for our rights in the 80s and 90s. I respect others' wishes to be named and seen how they prefer to be labeled, but for me, it's an adjective that unifies all non-majority conforming people without pushing the rights of one group over another. And more to the point, it's a reminder to continue the work of my predecessors to advocate for a world where differences are celebrated and not feared. Anyway, I love the show and have only the best wishes for your podcast family. Thanks, Lael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lael, if that's how you say your name. I'm taking a real big swing, but thank you for writing in and for the story. And we got lots of people explaining why they identified, and some people like Lael were like, I just don't want to get into it. And I've seen this before too, of some people talking about like, I'm a bisexual leaning towards more men, and I identify as, but romantically interested in this, and my gender identity is, and then when they talk to people outside the community, they're like, I'm gay. I'm a gay man. When you're in the community, you can have a little. It's a little bit safe. It's not always completely safe depending on the identity, but it should be a little bit safer to be able to here's all the things that I want to explain about my identity. And to outside people, they would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? So you're just I'm just gay. For you, I'm just gay, and you can move on.
Yeah. It a little bit reminds me of like when you said you wanted to start using he, they pronouns, and kind of wondering if your okayness with he is because just like it's just easier. Like
I don't know. It's so hard to tell what about gender is trained into you, and I, as someone who am very sensitive to outsiders' perspectives and will just believe everyone else before myself and trust what everyone else thinks before I will think about what I care or want. And I don't, I don't know how much of it is just like, oh yeah, that's the right thing that you've told me. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you for all the feedback, everyone. And almost everybody has been super respectful, which is great. I appreciate that.
Oh, almost everybody is. Are there stories I want to hear about later off the mic?
I will off pod tell you a story.
Oh, we have some shitty listeners. If you're wondering if it's you, it's you. And I actually think although you dominated my ass, as you put it, I am excited. I actually think this is a very fitting conversation to have, that we're talking about queer cinema, but we'll start to illuminate the differences between gay and queer, because like, why not gay cinema? Well, I think we'll get into that.
Yeah, I think we will too. But first, here's the news.
Shut your mouth hole. It's time for your ear holes. News.
News the first. Kyle.
Yes.
Hey, Kyle.
Hey, Mike.
I can't. I can't.
Can't even?
I can't fucking even.
Okay.
In the state of Ohio, Republicans have advanced a trans sports ban bill that would require student athletes to undergo medical verification if someone complains and demands that their gender be confirmed. So in the state of Ohio, they're saying genital inspections for fucking children, Kyle. If some random ass Karen fucking mom bitch wants to see what's in Johnny's pants. Because, god damn it, I just can't. I can't. Anyway, so last week the State House was set to vote on a bill to modify Ohio's teacher residency program when Republicans tacked on the trans sports ban at the last minute. The new measure would require schools, state universities, and private colleges to establish single-sex athletic teams and sports for the male sex and female sex, or have co-ed teams. The bill would require students whose, quote, sex is disputed to provide a doctor's statement verifying their, quote, internal and external reproductive anatomy. This physician would also need to confirm the student's, quote, normal endogenously produced levels of testosterone and perform an analysis of the participants' genetic makeup. Thus, they're kids. They're fucking children. Sorry. I mean, Republicans are probably also fucking children. Like, who knows? Like, but like,
no, we do. Yeah, we do. They are. Matt Gaetz, what's up? Yeah.
I just can't.
It's insane.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, it's insane. Imagine being a child and realizing that if you do anything outside of the gender norms, you may be perceived by outsiders as other, and that may bring on a medical examination of your genitals, among other things, among accusations of cheating. It's such a get back into your gender box kind of thing that affects trans people, and it's horrible, and they are the ones under attack right now, but also affects anyone with any kind of just not being the typical anything, any kind of expression or identity or anything that breaks you out of day to day. Like if you're a little girl that likes cowboy movies, I don't know, do they need to do a gender inspection? Because that's a little bit not what a girl does. Like it's insane how rigid they feel like. Before it was family values, now it's gender is under attack, and they need to try to force people back into the boxes of gender identity and expression that they are comfortable with. And it's it's gross and it's disgusting and it's going to kill kids.
Yep. Well, Catherine Oakley, who is the state legislative director and senior counsel for the Human Rights Campaign, said, quote, transgender students have participated in sports consistent with their gender identity for decades in states around the country, and there's no actual problem here that needs addressing. This bill is about targeting transgender youth for perceived political gain, not about strengthening women's sports or helping Ohio's youth. It is especially shameful that extremist politicians pass this legislation in the dead of night before leaving town until the fall. And so the bill actually is stalled now because they went on break, but the Ohio Senate, which meets again in November, will have to take up this issue and make a decision. So
it's like they took a dump in a public toilet and didn't flush. They were just like, oh, here we go, bye. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. The thing is, I think that, and we've talked about this on the show a little bit before, I think that there can be a nuanced and respectful discussion of the impacts of testosterone in athletics where it matters, and that there's a lot to talk about. But if the side that you're on says that an 8-year-old needs to have their penis looked at by a doctor so that they can play soccer, you are fucked. You are a fucking dickbag asshole. Get your shit together.
Yeah.
That is not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I really appreciate about what the internet has said in response to people that come out of the woodworks, oh, you care about women's sports? Let's talk about the issues. This is not an issue. So what are the issues? There are things like the pay gap or women's access to sports, or there's issues that actually affect the day-to-day lives of women and girls playing sports. And if you cared, you would look at those, but you don't care. You don't actually care about the fairness and equality of women's sports.
Nope. Yep. Yeah. I'm so sorry, trans people. Like that, you are just the favorite whipping post du jour for Republicans to win points with their base because they know that their time is up.
Yeah.
Next up, News the Second.
Yeah.
So LGBTQ plus community and allies are up in arms after the White House kicked off Pride Month by announcing a new postage stamp honoring former First Lady Nancy Reagan. Nancy Reagan, who was conservative Republican President Ronald Reagan's wife, our First Lady from 1981 to 1989.
Did you just know that?
Yeah.
Huh.
Rather famously, the Reagan administration completely ignored the HIV/AIDS crisis at the time when it was the height of its awfulness in the gay community. Reagan was in office for almost 5 years before he even said the word AIDS in public. And they also were friends with Rock Hudson, who was one of the earliest celebrities to die of complications with AIDS, from AIDS. And he apparently reached out to the Reagans to ask for their help because he was a candidate for a new kind of treatment. It doesn't say what kind of treatment. This is an article from Pink News. But apparently it was an experimental treatment for HIV/AIDS that wasn't available in the United States. And he asked the Reagans, who were his friends, to intervene so that he could get signed up for this program. And they declined to help.
Damn.
Yeah. So just... there are some Nancy Reagan defenders, but
Nancy Reagan apologists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there were reports that she lobbied her husband completely ineffectively to be kinder to the LGBT community, and there is some evidence to suggest that she did, but just the Reagan administration's silence on AIDS is unforgivable. And so for the Biden administration to release a postage stamp with her face on it the first day of Pride Month is definitely tone deaf, if not, I don't know what other
like actively antagonistic or something.
Right. Yeah. So anyway,
I think it's interesting. For some reason that reminded me of Biden posting about gun violence recently and being like, we need to take action. And it's like, bro, I know you're not the Senate. I know there are differences in these things, but taking to Twitter to saying things need to change when you're the fucking president is like, I don't know, like you're the president, bro. Like, hopefully you have a better avenue than Twitter. But to say that she is lobbying people, like Princess Di is a great example of she just did shit. She just if there was something that it was a rule that she was supposed to follow, or you follow the correct path, she didn't do it, and she just did what she wanted anyway. And so if you are the first lady and your husband isn't listening, there are things you can do. And so I don't know.
Yep, absolutely. I totally agree. I think there are maybe some like generational gender role things happening, right? Women from her generation were maybe less inclined to be strong, defiant, independent, powerful women. And come on now.
Come on. Come on. That's my response to Biden.
Yep. Okay, news of the last.
Great.
I'm going to probably fuck this up, Kyle.
Oh.
Mostly because I don't know who this person is. But I guess rapper Isaiah Rashad has publicly come out as sexually fluid. But this is after a sex tape leaked about him, outed him. He did an interview with a fellow rapper, Joe Budden, on Thursday. This is last week. And he defined himself as sexually fluid. So apparently back in February, there was a sex tape that got leaked that showed the 31-year-old engaging in sex with men. And then in April, during a set at Coachella, he said, quote, "Just because I grew up in high school, I dated this type of person. In college, dated this type of person. It doesn't mean that as an adult, it's always going to be like specific. I'm more attracted to a personality, and I'm attracted to the intellect. And sometimes it's just being attracted to somebody." But
somebody to love, somebody to love. Okay.
So apparently this leaked sex tape is him blowing some dudes and some dudes blowing him. So good for him.
Dudes, plural? Is that what you said?
Plural, men, plural.
Damn, group sex tape. Get it?
Yeah. It leaked online, and at first it was just a rumor, like, "Hey, is that Isaiah Rashad?" And then it turned out that it probably is.
God, that fucking jokes about blowing groups of men aside. Like, to not be in control of the moment you come out, and to have it not only come out that way, but through everyone seeing your like private personal sex life. Jesus, I don't know how you could. Yeah.
Yep. Well, he said that the leak resulted in his family discovering that he was queer, and the other rapper Budden in this interview said, well, quote, "You said your family knew, your grandparents knew, your girl knew," and he said, Rashad replied, "Well, it's a time for my family together out of everything. It's been a blessing that with that happening and my granddad dying a couple of days afterwards, it's been a concentration of family together more than they had been before. If anything, I can't be mad at everything about it. I always got to look at the brighter side of stuff." And I think it's sexually fluid is something that we've been talking about more and more, and I think it's really interesting to have a black man that is in the public eye come out as sexually fluid and have it, especially in a toxic environment like rap, and have it go pretty okay, at least so far, is interesting. And I definitely want to learn more about him and his music as a result.
Oh yeah, I want to learn more about his music.
Yeah. Hey now.
Hey.
I did look up the Jesse Williams sex tape. I'm not going to look up this one. It's not sex tape. The dong tape.
You looked up that was my biggest problem with the Jesse Williams dong, is it was just hanging there. It wasn't doing, I want a dick in action remains in action. Like I want to see it.
Wait, like Newtonian physics? A dick at rest remains at rest unless acted upon by an equal and opposite dick?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to look up his sex tape, and if it's not called Sexual Fluids, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Oh, my God.
No, I don't think. I probably won't. I might. I don't think I. No, I won't. I would never. I might. I maybe. No, I can't. I wouldn't. I might.
All right. I mean, I don't want to, but I will on your behalf.
You will do hardcore research for this show?
Yep. That's the news.
That's the news. Well, my hardcore research has been telling me that the following people are better than a sex tape. And thank you to the following new Patreon members: Tommy, John, Alex L. What?
Oh, they're just first names. That's it.
Tommy, John,
right.
Alex L, and G. Case Willoughby the Third.
Oh.
Sorry, Tommy, John, and Alex L. You got stomped on again by the G case. If you want to get episodes a day early, support the show, get ad-free listening, get lots of bonus content, check out all the options on patreon.com/Gayish podcast.
Do it. Do you want to talk about queer cinema?
Yeah. Let's talk about queer cinema.
So in just a little bit, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have our good friend, Quiz Daddy Chris Haigy from the We Read Movies podcast. People who listen to this show might remember he co-hosted when
people that listen to this show, people like you.
like you, current person.
Like you currently, yeah.
He helped me do the Armpits episode last summer in August, and then he was a frequent contributor on Have a Nice Gay. He did all of our quiz stuff, our Wednesday game day. Anyway, he knows a lot about gay cinema because that's all his podcast is about. But yeah. Anything we want to say before he's here to defend himself?
Boy, that his armpit image on the Instagram is one of our most popular images. Like nowadays, I see it. Like if you are, it's kind of subtle, but not really subtle. If you are like a gay influencer on Instagram, chances are every now and then when you're trying to promote something, you do a pit pic. Like that is a thing. There is a math to it that people know. Anyway, that's not anything about queer cinema, but that's just a fun fact. Glad
because those are still pictures, and cinema is moving pictures.
That's true. That's the biggest difference between our Instagram and queer cinema.
Yep.
I mean, and cultural impact is about the same. So,
all right. So, you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Okay, I'm going to watch a movie.
Oh, whoa. Okay. All right. Great. See ya. Chris and I will record while you're gone.
Okay, great. Bye.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So, are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
And I'm here.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Surprise!
Surprise.
Like a Nosferatu, I rise from the shadows.
Yeah. It's like the creepy kind, the real pale kind, except
the Count Orloff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here with Quiz Daddy Chris Haigy from the We Read Movies podcast. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, I'm very happy to be here
to
talk about my favorite subject.
What?
Gay movies.
Oh, good. Oh, that's a relief. If it was different than that, I would have been very...
To talk about my favorite subject, the antebellum South. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Perfect. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Yeah, so you're on here talking about your favorite thing, gay movies. Why do you care about gay movies, and what's your experience with gay movies?
Reintroduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Chris Haigy. So I mean, first off, I have a podcast called We Read Movies, where we talk about bad gay movies, also known as just gay movies. So like my full story, the very first movie that I ever watched, my dad was like, well, it's a musical, it's probably for kids. So it was Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, God.
And I loved it. It was my favorite movie. I had the soundtrack on cassette, and I used to listen to it all the time. So my history with gay movies goes back to, but when I was 2 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Did your parents were they ever in denial about you being gay, or was there oh, he loves Rocky Horror Picture Show, we got to get on board with this real quick?
I mean, I think that everybody really knew. After loving Rocky Horror Picture Show, I loved musicals of all kinds. My favorite toy growing up was a Rainbow Bright doll. I was hecka gay. I think I was much more vocal than I planned, than I thought I was being about my crush on Atreyu from The Neverending Story.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I came out at 14. So it wasn't much of a surprise to I think anybody.
Okay, sorry. Continue. You can continue with your movie descriptors.
Yeah. So I watch a lot of I was watching a lot of bad gay movies, and I was watching so many of them that I felt the need to start talking about them on a bi-weekly basis. And the thing that really made me want to start the podcast was that I was watching one of the first movies that we ever did called Going Down in La La Land, which is, there's no reason you would know about it. It wasn't particularly well received, but it was just it's a movie about a guy who moves to Hollywood, and then he tries to be an actor. That doesn't work. And then he becomes a porn star, and then becomes an escort. But it's about sex work, but it's very sex shaming.
Oh, wow.
And he is very sex shaming. And it made me feel gross. And I didn't like it. And then I was listening to a podcast about the movie, and that was really sex shaming too. So I have a love-hate relationship, I think, with gay movies.
What podcast was that?
I don't want to put him on blast.
It's Pride. We're supposed to be bitchy. That's why Pride was invented, so gays could be bitchy to other gays.
I feel
Harvey Milk died for our rights to be cunts to each other.
I'll tell you both after.
Okay.
I know that they are aware of us, but they have never talked bad about us, so I don't want to talk bad about them.
That's
getting Azalea Banks, man. Getting controversy going is the way you grow. This is your PR tactic. Okay, no. That's fair and very nice of you. Okay, I think that to start us off, gay movies, queer movies, it is a very important area for so many queer people, and I think similar to queer history, where if you don't know certain things, then especially after you come out, you never learn these things. No one taught you that. It makes sense that you don't know them. And also, other people can very much judge you for your knowledge or lack of knowledge in this area. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what the other areas, like female divas, gay history, and movies.
Musicals
is a Broadway. But even then, I think that if I'm talking to somebody and I say oh, I was listening to the Six soundtrack the other day, and they're like, I don't know what that is, and I'm like, that's fine. You don't need to. Whereas if I don't know, if somebody was to say that they had never seen Brokeback Mountain, I'd be like, really? You've never seen it? I understand if you don't like it, but you never felt the need to watch it, at least to try.
There's a difference even between being surprised. I don't know, but I think there is sometimes it can go to a place that makes people feel shitty about their, you're not gay enough, you're not right, you don't. How can you are deficient as a person? Which I think someone, what movie was it? Steel Magnolias. I still haven't seen it, but they described me as deficient because I had not seen that, and that was this has gone beyond. Oh, I'm surprised you haven't seen that. To now describing me as a person that's not complete because of lack of knowledge. I have very much felt that in the gay community.
Yeah, I mean, we can be judgmental bitches, and I will say this: I don't think you're deficient as a person, but you should see Steel Magnolias. And I think that that kind of that was basically what I was gonna say. Was just that you should see Steel Magnolias.
Yeah. The one thing to take away from this.
No, what I was gonna say is I don't think that there are gay movies that most people would be judgy that you haven't seen. maybe like Tu Wong Fu, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that by and large, it would be, they're not gay movies, but they are gay classics. So like Legally Blonde, or I was watching Fire Island yesterday, and there's a scene where they're talking about My Cousin Vinny, and somebody has never seen it or heard of it, and they're all like, how can you never have heard of this movie? So I would say things like that.
Yeah.
Charlie's Angels, basically anything with a strong female lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is really interesting how many movies aren't overtly queer that are these iconic, mean a lot to gay men more than other films. Even some films that are overtly queer, they still, prefer them.
I think that's true of artists also, like of musicians. Our gay icon musicians are almost never gay. It's it's Britney, it's Cher, it's Dionne Warwick, it's ostensibly straight, almost always women.
Yeah.
We almost never describe Elton John, for example, as being a gay icon, despite the fact that he is very flamboyantly gay. I think that he's potentially more appreciated by straight people than he is gays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about some of the movies, the queer movies of yore, as I always say that word, but they're smaller independent ones. They're Sundance movies. They're and the mainstream or the day-to-day ones that you talk about are not going to be these low budget independent films. They're gonna, and I think just like musical artists, I think that's a great comparison. I think musical artists, the thing they play in the radio is the thing little gay boys know about growing up. Just like the movies that we saw, we didn't have an opportunity to see gay movies, and that's changing now. But so we like ones that are, just like those divas of they're strong, weird women that, are, kind of fucked up, but are cool with it and, wear crazy things. Like, yeah, I think those parallels run very close together. So let's just put it out there. What's your do you have a queer movie gap? And Chris, like, you have an entire podcast where you watch gay movies, so I can't imagine you having a big gap. But
I don't have a huge gap. I do have I certainly have some hot takes. One of I guess the biggest gap is that and this is also my most cancelable opinion, but I started watching Call Me by Your Name and I stopped because I was intensely bored.
Wow.
I thought it was one of the most boring movies I'd ever seen. And I finally was just like, forget it. I can't do this. I don't want to watch 2 hours of this. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I literally did the same thing when I wrote down my answer to this. It is Call Me by Your Name. I started watching it and I think I got 5 minutes in and I was like, maybe not right now, because I'm so fucking bored right now.
It felt like work as I was doing it, and I don't know. I was yeah.
My other big gap is Pink Flamingos. That's one that comes up a lot.
John Waters?
Yeah, that's John Waters. That's the one where Divine eats poop at the end.
Great,
spoilers.
Sure.
No, I at least know the poop part. Mike, what about you?
Okay, I have also not seen at all Call Me by Your Name.
Oh, wow. We got a Call Me by Your Name gap here.
The trifecta. I haven't seen it. Of course, everybody raved about it. I just haven't prioritized it. And now maybe I won't after the panning that you guys just gave it.
I think I just need to get high.
True of the movie, end of life.
Yeah. What are some other controversial hot takes about gay cinema?
All right, here's my hottest take. The hottest take I have. I think that potentially, so I love John Waters movies, but I think potentially John Waters might have opened the door for a lot of really terrible cinema. Because I think that, like with David Lynch, John Waters is a very stylized thing that most people can, that I think a lot of people can look at and say, like, well, I could do that. And the fact is, like, oftentimes they can't, because what John Waters was doing and what David Lynch was doing, and still, I think he's still alive. What John Waters was doing was like adding. First off, nobody had ever done it before, so that was that was interesting in and of itself. But he added just an element of absurdity and sincere absurdity that I think is lacking from a lot of similarly campy, similarly trashy type movies that get made, especially ones on a low budget, and especially gay movies.
Sincere absurdity. I like that phrase. That's interesting. What about you, Mike?
Well, at some point we need to sort of calibrate on what we mean by queer cinema, right? Because this is a queer story about queer characters. That's like clearly fits, but then there's all this gray area in between, especially when we look at older movies, older cinema, because you couldn't be overt about these things. So, gay people are watching these movies and reading into things, and there's a lot of queer coding that happens. But
yeah, so does Spartacus count?
Right, exactly. And then there's this third bucket that Chris talked about a little bit ago of just movies that gay people love. Does that make it queer cinema? And so one of the things swirling around in my head, I don't understand why so many gay men love Grey Gardens. I don't. It's the documentary about little Edie, and like they just seem fucking obsessed with these women in this documentary. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't see the appeal. I don't get it.
I think that little Edie I think that Grey Gardens is. There's an element of there's an element of camp to it. There's an element of, I don't remember the right word for it. It's not quite kitsch, but it's wealthy women in decline, I think is a very appealing thing to gay men.
Yeah.
You get to kind of live a little bit vicariously through that. And especially like with little Edie, she's so, because she's rich, we'll call her eccentric, but like she was she was nuts.
Yeah.
And her wealth sheltered her and allowed her to kind of live that life without intervention. And I think that a lot of gay men see that and think, I fucking wish.
I think I think something about queer cinema is people on the fringes of society, views that you don't see, outsiders, people that don't fit, or someone that you're just like, this is not how people live or should live. It's just this comes across. This is insane. Like it's something about people on the fringes of society just kind of doing their shit, and whether they realize it or not, I think there's something to that that's inherent in queer cinema.
Yeah, I agree.
How about you, Kyle? What are we taking your gay card away for?
My biggest thing right now is that I don't watch a lot of gay things or queer things, and whether that's TV shows or media, I avoid them. And there's something like personal going on with me of it's difficult for me. Like basically I'm just like, okay, I have to just watch out for myself and my mental health, number one. And if that means not watching gay things, even though I should, or, or people recommend it, or it's, it's the biggest popular thing. I talk about gay culture for an entire fucking podcast and don't watch the current day gay things. And a part of it is there's something about watching gay movies that sometimes, or even gay TV shows that I want to be taken away, or I want it as a distraction. And that is a very like real and grounding thing. There's something that I'm annoyed as someone who's a writer or like wants to be a writer or whatever I am, that I'm like annoyed that I'm not doing anything or making any kind of art and these people are, and they're doing it. And there's like a envy that I have that I'm not proud of, that prevents me. There's most of them feature some kind of like hot dude that I could never be, and I've been avoiding things with like hot people. There are like all these reasons that I just do not watch or stay up on gay media right now.
What do you watch that doesn't have hot people in it?
Golden Girls. Mike, what is queer cinema?
Define it.
You want us to calibrate.
Well, yeah. What is queer cinema? I guess this is as good a time as any to talk about the history of queer cinema. which,
no one at home can see what I just did, but I did. I did jazz hands.
It's the pizzazz that's been lacking from the history segments.
So if you read like the Wikipedia article, the history of homosexuality in American film, right? Like multiple places I ran across this same tidbit of the first queer representation in film.
The Gay Brothers.
Is the Gay Brothers. And it's this it's very short. I watched the whole thing 3 times because it's only like 30 seconds. And it was filmed in 1895 and it was filmed at Edison's laboratory. And
at a laboratory?
Yeah.
His like movie theater, movie studio. He called it Edison's Labs. He did other stuff there too. So inventions. And also, a little bit of strong arm robbery of other places.
Yeah.
Because he was also kind of a mobster.
Yeah. Yeah. Poor Tesla.
Yeah. Well, and he would other people would be like, I'm going to make a movie studio too. And he was like, no, you're not. And then a bunch of thugs would show up and smash all their cameras. So, Edison kind of sucked. But anyway, the point is, yes, his labs.
Problematic. Yeah. Well, and it's it's also known as the Dixon experimental sound film. It was made by William Dixon in late 1894, early 1895, and it is the first known film that had sound recorded with it. So it's notable for 2 pretty big reasons, right? The first is that it shows these 2 men dancing with each other while another man plays the violin or violin, and then it's notable because you can see the guy playing the violin into this giant ass cone because it is being fed into a recorder that it's making a wax cylinder that has the sound on it. And so it's the first known film with live recorded sound. It's really interesting, but it's not queer. It's queer.
I don't even think it's called the Gay Brothers, but from what I saw, they didn't seem they weren't like the Gay Brothers that I remember from a certain video from the 2007 or so.
Right, yeah.
The Peters.
It's not familydick.com, that's for sure. Right?
I sort of always assume, in my head, I just kind of always assumed that Edison just meant the Happy Brothers.
Right.
Oh yeah, was gay at that time, or was gay happy?
It's also possible that Edison didn't name it that. There's some places that suggest that Vito Russo, who wrote The Celluloid Closet, which was then ultimately turned into a movie, which we talked about on X-Rated Movies in season 1 of Gayish. But his book, The Celluloid Closet, written in 1981, he titled it The Gay Brothers, or claimed without attribution that it was called The Gay Brothers, and that sort of took off. But it's unsubstantiated.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's also there's no evidence that the guy intended, Dixon, the director, intended to present the men as a romantic couple. In fact, the lyrics of the song that the violinist plays describes life at sea without women. And when you're at sea without women, you dance with each other. You also blow each other sometimes. So maybe it's not the slam dunk that this writer thinks it is. And
also sometimes you look over the side of the boat and you see a manatee and you think that's a hot mermaid.
Yeah.
And then you dash your ship upon the rocks trying to fuck that manatee.
Yeah. Yeah. Early cinema got away with a whole bunch of shit, which I think we've talked about before, the Hays Code a little bit, and I will go over some of that. But early cinema got away with a whole bunch of stuff that just wouldn't have been allowed in the 40s, 50s, 60s.
Like what, Mike?
Okay, the 1922 film Manslaughter includes an orgy scene, and in that orgy scene is a same-sex kiss.
Oh,
it is.
Boy, okay, I mean, same-sex kiss, great, but if you're describing an orgy scene and kiss seems like the not a same-sex dicking down, or
yeah. Also, what do we paint a word picture of this orgy? Like, how much dick do we see?
Yeah, I don't think this. I don't know. I haven't seen it. It is a silent film, and so I'm reasonably sure it could be found on YouTube. It is 100 minutes long, so it's a full thing. It is not. It's not
It's 100 minutes of orgy.
No. So just to read the description here, it was directed by Cecil B. DeMille, who there's now a fancy award named after, but
also one of the best scenes in Sunset Boulevard. Another movie that I would say is very gay.
Yeah,
Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close up. No, all right, never mind.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my god,
I've seen that clip.
Do your gay card.
I know, right? Manslaughter portrays the main character Lydia Thorne as a thrill-seeking, self-entitled, and wild woman who does not have a reputation of thinking before acting. She acts selfishly by dancing with other men in the presence of her husband and not providing help to her maid, who is in dire need for her son's health. As a result of her numerous poor decisions, she is taken to court because of a vehicle accident entailing a high-speed chase that she has with a motorcyclist policeman. Following this accident, she is imprisoned for manslaughter after being prosecuted by her husband, Daniel O'Bannon, who is a lawyer.
I think you accidentally read The Great Gatsby. I think that was the description of The Great Gatsby.
I think you accidentally read the biography of Barbara Bush.
Yeah, right? It's true. Oh, God. After she gets out of jail, he becomes president. No, she finds that her husband has become an alcoholic. And then it says, this film was one of the very first to depict a graphic scene of men plundering a room of women meant to represent the descent of Lydia's privileged life. And this film contained various imagery depicting life among the upper class society. It was the first film to show an erotic kiss between two members of the same sex. And yeah,
I want men to plunder me. Like, I just don't want to have sex with him. I want them to plunder me. That's hot.
Great. It does. I mean, it sounds very like bodice ripping romance novel.
Yeah. Like a little bit misogynistic, but like the light misogyny is hot.
But then you fix him with your goodness, and he turns into a. Yeah. It turns out that he's a lord or something, and then he marries you.
My goodness,
makes an honest woman of you.
Yeah. There's an orgy, and there's some kissing that happens. Then
there's an orgy and there's some kissing.
Yep.
This isn't one of those no kissing orgies.
Marlene Dietrich kisses a lady in 1930 in the movie Morocco, and
while wearing a suit.
While wearing a suit,
Scandalous.
A lady wearing a suit and kissing another lady. How dare she? Mm-hmm. But that was. That's the first time that a leading lady kissed another female on screen and was definitely making a splash. That was a queer splash, undeniably a queer splash. It was controversial and discussed, and the queerness of the whole thing is why I buy the argument that that's the first one that counts. But I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything. But I think there's a lot of focus on what men do in cinema. And male homosexuality is more threatening to culture at large, or seems to be. But this Marlene Dietrich, like putting her mouth on that other lady's mouth, is pretty. I think that's the one.
And it was also like it's not one of those movies where homosexuality is shown to be like a symbol of debauchery or a symbol of like a lewd lifestyle, or even where it's like, you've got like The Children's Hour, which is about a lesbian who is running a school and she's punished for it.
Yeah.
Spoilers for a movie from 1932 or whatever, but she doesn't get to have a happy ending.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I think in Morocco, my understanding is, she kind of does.
Right. Yeah. I want to see it now, just on principle. Be a good gay. So then we get into the Hays Code time. So, in the Motion Picture Code, which got started in 1934, it went under a whole bunch of revisions. But basically from 1934 to 1968, there were these codes that prevented a whole bunch of shit from being depicted in cinema. and gay shit, any kind of queer shit at all was verboten. So we end up having, back to this original question of like, what is queer cinema? We end up having a lot of queer things happening on screen and hinted at or coded, but not actually overtly present. And it's an interesting time because, like, the celluloid closet mentions over and over again, gay people go to a movie and they're desperately looking for themselves and looking for representation. And there were lots of ways in which Hollywood gave it to them, but they had to do it on the DL.
Yeah.
And and then
to connect back to our previous episode.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I learned a thing that you taught me from our last episode about the word queer and how people in like New York, in that book, Gay New York by Chauncey, a name I have a terrible memory, but I won't forget the name Chauncey. But there, people identified as queer, and New York, I like read more about that after the episode. And in New York, there was an entire, from like very late 1800s to like 1940-ish, where we had these balls. I wasn't there. Queer people had balls. There were people that identified as queer. Queer was more like middle class. They, meant different things. And then I think like during the 40s was this big backlash against queer culture, and we had to kind of go underground. And it's not like we were like, I don't know. There were just like all of these public events that people wrote about and talked about, and so it's interesting the timing. I'm surely all of this connects and lines up that the timing of that is in the 30s, around when some of these things that we were just a little bit more out in the open or talked about, even if not broadly socially accepted, then that happened in the early 1900s, then got pushed aside, or society kind of had this backlash against them.
And I think that happens. I think that sort of happens again in the 70s, right, with disco, and then there's a backlash against that again. And I think that generally society kind of, we take two steps forward, one step back very often, and we start having, 1969 rolls around, we get movies like The Gay Deceivers, and then Stonewall happens, and we get a whole bunch of like gay rights, and then we have the disco scene, and we've got the Village People, they have their own cereal brand, and then America's like, hey guys, y'all are too gay for us, so like dial it back a little bit.
Yep.
I think that happens often.
Yeah, and you talk about the coincidence of timing, Kyle. Like the Hays Code barely hangs on during the 60s. It's not nearly as stringently enforced, and that's when sexual liberation is happening. Straight people are doing all of this like Summer of Love and shit like that, and then Stonewall happens in 69. And by then, the Hays Code was replaced with the film rating system that we know now, the MPAA, and rated R, rated X, blah blah blah. And I think it's interesting also because Stonewall happens and gay people sort of arrive on the scene, and studios start to see us as a way to make money, and it then is more inclined to include more overtly queer things in movies. And then you've got, when did Rocky Horror come out? 1970 something. Like by the time Rocky Horror comes out, like it's just
75.
75. We've given up even just like pretending or trying to hold it back. But yeah, and then do you want to talk about your stuff? Like
yeah. So I'm going to talk about new queer cinema, which there's this wave of a queer cinema that happened in the 90s that I'm going to talk a little bit more about. It's either called new queer cinema, also referred to as the queer new wave. That was a term coined by B. Ruby Rich in the magazine Sight and Sound in 1992. And I first came across this when looking up queer cinema. I came across this article in the New York Times that talked about a Sundance Film Festival panel with queer directors and stuff on January 25th, 1992. And they talked about contemporary gay and lesbian cinema. It was called the Barbed Wire Kisses panel, which was after some band. It was an album by a band who I can't find the connection to. I don't know. Surely there's something queer about that I don't understand, but there you go. But it's I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but like, I just think it's interesting that that is a moment in queer history that is at Sundance. This group of people got together, talked about cinema, and it is, the article I was reading was a reflective looking back on 30 years or whatever since this panel. And it's crazy. Mostly history doesn't happen in these big moments that you can, you look back and you say Stonewall was important there, but there are all these things that happened along the way. But this is a moment, there was a point in time that you could point to and say, this is a moment in queer cinema history. This group of people that got together and talked about it, if you were there on that day, it is a moment in history. And that always fascinates me, those kind of moments that you look back and say, this was important. And when I hadn't heard about. So these directors and queer people got together and talked about gay cinema. They talked about things like the trans representation in Silence of the Lambs. Like, imagine being able to have that discussion at the time without straight people there to have to, like, you're all just kind of, there's a level of removing the outside. This is like, let's talk about our community and our opinions on this topic.
I'm always in favor of events that don't have straight people at them, just in general.
Straight people are so exhausting.
I know.
And ubiquitous.
And ubiquitous, yeah. Anyway, so that kind of kicked off this new queer cinema movement. I just wrote down, as I was reading about it, words that helped define what this movement meant. It's interesting because the person that created this phrase to describe it, B. Ruby Rich, said that it doesn't share a single aesthetic, vocabulary, or strategy or concern. So talking about the variety of these films. So then what do they have in common? And it is the queer part. So it is activist driven. It was described as identity cinema. It is films that are angry, made during the 90s. They are a rejection of heteronormativity, LGBT protagonists on the fringes of society. That's something I mentioned before. Rich, the person that created this, said, quote, "The 80s had been so brutal. Work didn't get made because people were dying too fast," which I don't know. There's no, just anytime I'm reminded of the AIDS crisis, it's something that I can never truly totally feel. But this is just another one of those times where you're like, oh, we didn't get films made because we're all fucking dying. Like that. Right, it's just, the gravity of that. Like,
one of the movies that we did for the podcast was Red Ribbon Blues, which is a movie that RuPaul's in, as is Lipsinka and a couple of other people. But RuPaul's in it. It's weird to think of, like, this person who I know is still alive. I don't know her, but this person who is still alive, who I see on my television every day, was also around at a time when, in the movie, they talk about, like, it's set a couple of years in the future where, like, they have a new pill for HIV that increases the lifespan, that doubles the lifespan of AIDS patients, and now allows them to live for up to 10 years. And it was this, like, shocking bit of text on the screen that, like, not even an entire generation has gone by where, like, people were dying very, very regularly and, like, very quickly from this disease. And it happens so recently.
Yeah. And this is, I think, part of what comes of that, part of the reason for this wave of queer cinemas is in reaction to that. That is why it is people in the fringes. That is why they are taking queer people and putting them front and center. And it is not trying to fit in or buy in. Like, these are, like, we are angry that not only is this happening, but no one gives a shit about us. And it is angry, unapologetic, and activist centric. One of the things that I liked that it describes this type of movie as this confrontational and antagonistic approach towards heterosexual culture. It's these people that are fucking pissed off because all their friends died. No one fucking cares. We haven't been, like, art, it makes sense that that's a place that people turn to be able to express some of this pain and the difficulty they're going through. And what was also interesting is when this started to slow down, one of the people that was on that panel talked about how in the 21st century, LGBTQ lives were not under attack by AIDS or Congress like they were in the 90s. So the outrage that this kind of brand of cinema it did not have the outrage and immediacy of this wave of queer cinema. That's like a really interesting byproduct of AIDS and political action and groups like ACT UP and Queer Nation. So some of the movies that I intend to try to watch this month to help me learn a little bit more, just reading some of the ones that came up so others, if they want to listen or watch as well. Edward II by Derek Jarman, Young Soul Rebels by Isaac Julian, Swoon by Tom Kalin, Poison by Todd Haynes, Paris is Burning by Jenny Livingston, and The Watermelon Woman by Cheryl Dooney, which is the thought to be the first out Black lesbian to direct a feature film.
I would add to that list probably the Teen Apocalypse trilogy, the Greg Araki, what is it, Doom Generation. I don't remember the other three, but he made 3 movies in the 90s that are the Teen Apocalypse trilogy, and they're just sort of very, as you say, very activist, very angry, very yeah.
One of my big gaps was Paris is Burning. So that the reason I did not mention that earlier is because last night I watched it. So that was the first time I'd seen it. And I I've watched Pose before I've watched this. So it is insane how close and it poses a very good representation of Paris is Burning. I was really impressed with that. So not only like learning about this moment in time in queer film history that I didn't know about, I think some of the ways that we define that help illuminate the difference between gay cinema. Like gay movies, they talked about, like, there are gay movies happening at the time, like The Crying Game. They are made by straight people, or there are movies that are about, even when you get to modern day, Love, Simon, like, I'm just a normal white boy, like those to me are gay movies versus queer. There's something that is activist, that has more Black people of color, that has people with HIV or AIDS. Like there is something that about queer cinema. They're angry, or they're weird, or they're independent. Like there's something about queer cinema that I also think helps illuminate the difference between the words gay and queer.
There's a really good Matt Rogers does a character, you can find it on YouTube, but it's the like unintimidating gay teen, and he talks about like the gay teen that you see in movies basically, and how the character like doesn't get to have sex and may at some point share like one chaste kiss. But more often than not, the only thing that really happens to them is that the whole school comes around and accepts them. And they're still alone, and the audience doesn't get to, like, movies like that. They don't give young gay kids a hope that they will be treated as equals. They're still, they don't get to have their own love story, for example. They don't get to have, the best that they can hope is that their homophobic parent will come around and be slightly less homophobic at the end of the movie.
Right.
The best thing you can hope for is you don't realize how hot your dad Josh Duhamel is, because that really breaches a weird line that as a gay teen you may not want to go down.
It's true. It's actually fitting then that we ended on that, because what I wanted to talk about was, as I say, we've got a podcast. It's called We Read Movies. Hold 2, 3. Again, it's called We Read Movies. And we watch, bad gay movies, and then we talk about them for comedy purposes. And as I say, the reason that I wanted to start the podcast was because there's so many movies, there's so many pieces of media that is made for and often by gay people that traffics in this very anti-gay attitude. So one of the questions that we always ask at the end of our episodes is this a good gay movie? That is it a movie that's good for gay people? So does it avoid trafficking in harmful stereotypes, internalized homophobia? Does it slut shame? Is it advocating for homonormativity, which it was a term coined by Lisa Duggan during the fight for gay marriage, basically. And it's taking heteronormative ideals of like monogamy and chasteness and sort of conservatism in both your attitudes and like the way that you dress and the way that you conduct yourself. And so you like you're straight acting, and you just basically apply that to gay people. So you still have, you know, you end up with movies like Eating Out 3, All You Can Eat, where you have a character talk about how like gay people are all shallow sluts, and then he's the like one good monogamous gay person who doesn't only care about people's appearances, and then as a result he ends up getting the hottest person in the movie, his like boyfriend.
Don't take that dream away from me. don't take me shitting on every other gay person and getting the hot guy as a dream that I personally have away from me.
But yeah, so as we're asking these questions, the answer more often than not is no, this is not a good movie for gay people. And they engage in like, or they'll engage in femme shaming, right? Which happens a lot. So we get a lot of gay movies made by gay people, like by gay directors, where all of the actors are straight and they all act like it. And then what we get from that is, first off, that we're sort of taught by our own media, and it's something that I think a lot of us internalize, that like flamboyancy is unacceptable, and like swishiness is unacceptable. And also it has the unfortunate fact of like, because all of the actors are straight, they often don't want to appear on camera kissing a man. So you get the like 6 degrees of separation thing where they go in for the kiss and then the camera pulls away at the last second and you just see the backs of their heads. So like I guess they might be kissing, but no, they're not. And then we are taught by our own media that our sexuality is shameful and is something that can't be displayed.
Yeah. We just continually have these kind of debates about even at Stonewall, where people were like, we should not be, you know, out there in chorus lines. We should not have limp wrists out there. We should not be singing and chanting and breaking things. We need to fit in. Like we have this constant push and pull between the groups of people that think we should fit in, and there's a, you know, heteronormativity to an assimilation that we think we need to fit in, versus people that you know, think we should rebel and throw bricks and you know, reject those ideas and fight back. And it's interesting how that comes up so often in you know, in everything we do, including media like this.
Yeah.
And personally, for me, like when I was a teenager, I also was like, oh, let's all, you know, nobody should be painting their nails or like changing their hair color, piercing their ears. Like, let's all just be, you know, quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
And
same.
And now that's, you know, not me at all. But I also think that, like, for me personally, I think that you need both. I think that you need the people who are going to be, you know, sort of happy being cis, gender conforming, quote unquote normal people. And you need the outliers. You need the rebels. And fortunately, I don't think we have to do anything to make that happen. Like, I think that we exist on a spectrum of types of people, and there are people who are those rebels just naturally, and there are people who are, you know, sort of happy being monogamous with a white picket fence just naturally.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Especially when you look at, you know, whether we like it or not, straight people have the power, and we definitely need to, I think, be strategic about how we move the needle with them, right? Like, and this is a debate that's been happening, like Kyle sort of alluded to, since the 1950s. I think about the Deviants War and Frank Kameny and making everybody show up in suits and ties in the sweltering heat to picket because he wanted everybody to look, you know, palatable.
Right.
But there's utility in that. There really is. And I agree with you. You need both. You need both to be successful.
And I always think of David Foster Wallace has an essay where he's talking about the OED and like why the OED is important and why like grammar is important. And there's an argument that like we should be able to break grammar rules, and they don't the grammar rules, for example, don't reflect. I don't remember I don't remember the term that we call it now, but like Black Urban English or Southern English, or the Pidgin English of like Louisiana or whatnot. But it is important when you're sort of interacting with people who do have the power to engage them on their own field. And it's unfortunate that we have to do that. In a perfect world, we wouldn't. But I think that we all, to bring it back to queerness, I think that we all code switch a little bit. And my problem is always that in a lot of our media, we are creating this media for ourselves to be consumed almost exclusively by gay people, but we make it as if our parents are going to see it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that winds up being healthy for us. I think that makes it so that we're no longer code switching then. Like that then just becomes our default if that's the only media that we consume. And what also ends up happening is a lot of times if we have a femme character in one of these movies, they wind up being sort of the, like, there's the trope in straight movies of sort of the magical homo, right? Who like comes in, helps the straight people find love that they are never allowed to have themselves. Yeah. And in gay movies that still happens. It's just that now that's the femme character, or that's the black character, or that's the old character, or it's the, non-standard standards of beauty character, or all four potentially. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to end this whole spiel on a hopeful note, because it doesn't have to be like this. And we've been getting a lot of movies recently that are not like this. So Fire Island, which I watched yesterday, came out. I think it came out on Friday. But anyway, it features a wide variety of body types and of and of people. It's fine. Like, as a movie, it's perfectly serviceable. It's not that funny. It's not that good. But like, we all watch like a lot of media that is just okay. And why not, make it this queer one that's just okay.
That's true. I watch a lot of mediocre TV shows that I know are just mediocre, but they're just there to enjoy and do something. And let gay be an option for mediocre.
I watched all of Love is Blind recently. Why did I do that?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was a terrible decision. I did it.
I have watched Real Housewives in the past. Like, you know what? Yeah. We're allowed to watch gay medium quality things.
Yeah. And like Bros is coming out soon, that Billy Eichner movie. I'm very excited about that. We'll see if it disappoints me, but so far it's looking good. I've got my fingers crossed. Yeah. And we've also been getting we've been getting more and more gay genre movies. So movies that are unabashedly queer, but where it's not like a romance or a coming of age movie. So we've got things like Knife Plus Heart, Death Drop Gorgeous, Stranger by the Lake. And we've been getting gay Hallmark style Christmas movies that are not to my tastes, but some of them I liked Single All the Way.
Yeah. Was that on the Hallmark Channel, or was that Netflix?
That one was on Netflix.
Yeah, okay.
Hallmark Channel was, I think the only one that they did was Happiest Season, which I did not care for.
Okay.
That's the Kristen Stewart one, right?
Kristen Stewart winds up with her conservative, like Republican girlfriend instead of Aubrey Plaza, who rocks and who the whole movie is like, yeah, I'm cool. I don't need to pretend to be straight so that my fucking homophobic dad can win his mayorship. And then at the end, Kristen Stewart's girlfriend is like, I talked to them and now you're going to be allowed to be in our family picture. And she's like, oh, thank you for that crumb. I'm so happy to be vaguely accepted.
Wow.
Sorry, I have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, no, we were leaving on an uplifting note, so you need to keep talking to get there.
Okay, all right, and then, but we're also getting like new and interesting, even coming of age movies. So like we've got that new Troye Sivan movie, 3 Months. Mm-hmm. That one is, I thought, super good. It's telling a story that we haven't heard as much, especially lately, and especially told through this lens. It's for those of you who haven't heard, Troye Sivan plays a teenager in, I think, Florida, who finds out that he has been exposed to HIV, and he has to wait 3 months before he can, get he's in that window.
Yeah.
And it's sort of him coming to grips with it, but it's him coming to grips with it in a not at all hopeless way that I think a lot of movies that we've seen in the past have had. Like there are a couple of like gay movies that are from the 80s where somebody gets HIV and then like they're dead in the next scene.
Yeah.
And where we're shown that like HIV is the worst possible thing that can happen to a person, instead of, especially at this point in our lives, a very manageable condition.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we can do our part to support gay creators. So not indiscriminately, of course. I'm going to advocate that nobody go out and watch Coming Out Colton. We don't need to.
Yeah.
But like, as I say, we watch a lot of mediocre content often. If we see something gay and it's on streaming, it's free for us. Put it on. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't be. If it's not, you can turn it off. If it is, then you should, if it's one of those movies that is a good gay movie, if it's good for gay people, tell other gay people about it.
Yeah.
And even better, if it's a movie that like you think your straight friends might enjoy, if you have straight friends, tell them. So like Knife Plus Heart is legitimately an amazing movie. It's this like French giallo movie about a serial killer who's stalking a gay porn set, and he's got a dildo knife. It's so good, and it's really wacky and like pretty weird. At some point, the main character meets somebody who has like a dinosaur hand, but I don't know. It's truly enjoyable.
You had me a dildo knife, so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's a ton of queer content that you can be consuming and that costs you nothing to do. Yeah. And the worst thing that happens is you turn it off and you go back to Love is Blind.
Yeah.
Totally.
Rate, review, subscribe, and recommend, everybody. That's what we need out of good queer cinema. So should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's take a break. Break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
Man, that was a good movie. Are we back?
We're back.
We're back. We're going to do Gayest, Straightest, but first, Chris Haigy, where can people find out more about you, what you're up to? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, so, my name is Chris Haigy. Hi. You can find me at a variety of places. I am on Twitter and kind of Instagram at Lighter Fandango on both of those, Lighther Fandango, like the movie site.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can find my podcast, We Read Movies, wherever podcasts are found. And also, if you are in the Seattle area, on Tuesdays, I host trivia at Madison Pub. Mm-hmm. It is... You know what? I'm going to say it. It's the best trivia night in Seattle.
You know what? I'll say it for you. I love going to trivia nights, and yours is my favorite. So,
well, that feels excellent to hear. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, our website is gayishpodcast.com.
We are on socials at Gayish Podcast.
Our hotline, you can leave us text messages or leave us voicemails, especially if they're questions for momsplaining. It's 585-GAYISH. That's 585-542-5855 Gayish. Oh my God, I fucked it up. I think that's the first time I ever fucked it up.
I thought the internet cut out because that was like so weird. Okay.
5855 Gayish. 585-542-9474 Stated Rate Supply.
Our email is gayishpodcast at mail.com because we're just leaving out random things here and there at gmail.com.
And our physical mailing address is Post Office Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109. 2 points of personal privilege here. The first, happy 40th birthday to my baby brother Murph. Murph, who's been on the show several times and is, he's one of the best straight people I know in terms of like actual allyship. And
he's a man now.
I'm not going to tell Eric you said that.
That's true. Happy birthday, Murph.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Second, I'm going to do my local gay bar review segment. So
wait, before we do that, remember that we are doing a happy hour on a date near the end
Thursday, June the 23rd at 6 p.m. Pacific time. We are having a happy hour for Pride. We'll be sending a Zoom link out to all of the places. Come join us and have a cocktail, whether there's booze in it or not.
Yeah, we should do like a Facebook invite or something for that. So find that on our Facebook page.
That's real smart. I'll do that. Local gay bar review. So I said it a million times. I'll say it again. I'm traveling a fuck ton for work, and I've committed to visiting at least one gay bar in all of these random ass places across the world as I go, and doing a quick review. So this last week I was in Washington, D.C., and I went to Pitchers. Pitchers is a bar in the district. It is like Adams Morgan-ish, but also kind of DuPont Circle. But it's a adorable place. I really enjoyed it. It feels like multiple bars happening in the same place. There are literal multiple bars in that like they have lots of different places that you can walk up and order a drink, but it's on 4 different stories sort of. And there's a restaurant part downstairs, and then upstairs there's this area that has like video games at tables, like permanently there, so you can just like.
Well, I'm sold.
Pick up a controller and start playing. There's like a sports bar, big TVs kind of area, a couple of big patios that are outdoors, and lesbians in the basement. And I'm
where
not
they
kidding.
belong.
I'm not kidding. They have a bar catering to female and femme presenting folks in the basement, and
lesbians go down.
Right? Yeah. I really enjoyed
Unlike
this
gay
bar.
men who historically have never gone down.
Right. Check it out. It's Pitchers in DC. It was fun.
Did you see Aaron Schock there?
No.
That's probably for the best.
But it was also like a Thursday.
So you expected him to be instead ass up at Steamworks.
Right, exactly. I'm sure that's where he was. Yeah. Okay, let's
Not
do...
to slut shame.
Well, even bigots.
Just the hypocrisy tame.
We can shame that slut.
Yeah.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest, sponsored by Spaces. Spaces, a new group chat app for niche queer communities by Hornet. Kyle, do you want to go first?
Sure. My gayest is the adorable ramekin of Greek yogurt that I make for myself most mornings.
Yeah.
It's the ramekin itself is like kind of cute and stuff, and I got put in some Greek yogurt and blueberries and some nuts on top, and it just looks like it just looks like real pretty when I eat it. The straightest thing is the course of researching for this episode and not knowing most of these movies and feeling like I am such a bad gay for not knowing any of these. Yeah.
You're not a bad gay for that.
Thank you for yeah, agreed.
There's something vaguely homoerotic about the phrase Greek yogurt, I think.
Yeah, because Greek is historically gay and yogurt sounds like jizz.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Wow. Chris, breaking things down. Who needs subtext after all? When you can just have text. Mike, what about you?
The straightest thing about me this week is I went home for my brother's 40th birthday, and it was a quick trip, so I packed super duper light. I just put everything I needed into my glasses case, my pills and my contact solution. End of list. And
poppers.
Yeah.
That you didn't bring like a shirt or something?
No, nothing. No, nothing. Just
wow.
Just my medications and my glasses, and that was it. And then the gayest thing about me this week, I was at this party for my brother's birthday. It was also their he and Gina just got married in February, but they waited to have their reception. So it was a combo wedding reception and then my brother's 40th birthday. And after the whole thing, I stayed at my mom's house last night, got up this morning, and we were having breakfast. And I was talking about this boy that I saw running around with my now, I guess, niece-in-law. No. Yeah. Anyway, and I just... my gaydar is the gayest thing about me. I was like, who is that boy? And does he know that he's not totally straight? And to which my mom replied, oh, yeah, he's gay and out. I was like, in Tri-Cities, Washington? Great. Okay, neat. But yeah, I was
your dick didn't have to be the one to tell him.
I was dead on accurate about him being a mo. So yeah.
Nice.
How about you, Chris Haigy?
So I mentioned it before, but have been hosting trivia at Madison Pub, which is a gay sports bar kind of.
Yeah.
It's not. There's plenty of non-sports there, but there's also in Seattle, it is the gayest, sportsiest place that exists.
Yeah.
So as a result, I have asked more sports questions at trivia in the last month than I have ever asked in the history, just in all told in the 12 years that I've been hosting trivia.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly just because I had a rule that I didn't ask sports questions before.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the gayest thing about me is that I took an edible 2 nights ago and choreographed a dance to Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush because it was on Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And it just, reminded me how much I love Kate Bush.
Yeah.
Can you do it for us now?
Give me an edible and we'll see.
Okay.
That was what my boyfriend was watching Drag Race at a friend's house. And so I just got stoned and did some Kate Bush choreography.
Nice.
Oh, you're doing it now. Ooh. I didn't know you could do 2 backflips in a row. Oh, wow. Look at that kickflip.
Good Lord.
Here's the weird thing is that I can't do 1 backflip, but I can do 2.
You can do 2.
Yeah.
0 or 2. That's my rule about sex.
Wow. Well, Chris Haigy from the We Read Movies podcast, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your pearls of wisdom about cinema.
I thought we cut that part out.
Oh, yeah.
Part of the choreograph. Thank you to Spaces for sponsoring us. They posted about us and other of their spaces that they were featuring on like Instagram and shit. So, it's nice to feel loved and wanted. So thanks Spaces for sponsoring us and posting about us. And we're one of the biggest things on Spaces. So, so go check out our space.
Yeah.
Thank you also to our super gap bridgers, Yo, Stossel, Harry Shaw, Josh Copeland, Forrest Snow, Patrick Martin, Anonymous, James Barrow, Steve Douglas, Explosive Lasagna, Christopher Farrell, Just Jamie, Kevin Henderson, Tipsy McStumbles, Donald Linsky, Thomas B. Dusty Sanzay, Coleman, Chris Catchatorian, Jerome York, and Cian and Javi. Thank you and happy Pride, especially to them.
Yeah, that is it. This has been Gayish from the Chris Catchatorian Studios. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you. See you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Brokeback is one of them, but I think at this point most people have come around to like that movie's fine. It was groundbreaking, but it wasn't good. My favorite part of that movie is when Heath Ledger, when they're about to have sex for the first time, and he licks his hand, and like that's gonna be enough,
right? For a virgin, right?
Yeah.